Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is an esoteric self-defense practice and combat sport. Jiu Jitsu can save lives. If you were fighting a much bigger opponent, or if you were assaulted, you'd be able to use Jiu Jitsu without having a lot of muscle, a lot of size, or fighting experience. As long as your skills are sharp, you can potentially neutralize the threat as quick as possible. Without haste, solutions arise on their own. This is a paradigm of the fundamental principles of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. When we are rushing to get to our moves, we're putting aside mental clarity for consequence of skill. Although the goal is to win, if we're angry or we have emotions tied to outcome, we're not going to get the successful outcome. We need to be balanced, centered, present, focused. Unlike boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, while mental clarity is definitely going to help you prevail in your career, it's not always the first thought. Go out calm, cool, collective. It's more so go out, beat the crap out of somebody, right? But Jiu-Jitsu is much more gentle than that. Not too gentle, though. Jiu-Jitsu is all about balance. Balance on your feet, and balance on the ground, and more importantly, balance between your mind, body, and spirit. How so? Jiu-Jitsu is accomplished when one is focused on using pressure, momentum, leverage, and balance in order to stay in good position and find angular advantage on their opponent to help put through a series of pins. We call a pin whenever somebody is pressed against the mat in a position where they can't move. Now, in wrestling, when both shoulders hit the mat and the opponent keeps him there for 2 seconds, the match is over. That's called a pinfall. Although pins in Jiu-Jitsu don't end the match, they will score you points. They don't end the match though. Unlike other martial arts like wrestling, a pin in Jiu-Jitsu is used to set up the end goal, which is a submission. In wrestling, a pin is the end goal. BJJ competitors are calm, tranquil, and often blissed. They appear very relaxed, even at the pro level. Now why? Why would somebody be coming in looking like they're about ready to go read a book when they're really gonna go compete against top level athletes? Well, if there's a lot running through one's mind, their reaction time is gonna be delayed. In boxing, the sport itself can definitely make somebody mentally frustrated. If you were to take a couple punches to say the face, nobody likes getting hit in the face, so there's going to be a retaliation, and perhaps the person who was hit in the face is now going to force his punches. Rather than stay nice and calm and loose, he's going to be really trying to wail him out of anger and frustration. We don't want that in Jiu-Jitsu. In Jiu-Jitsu, if you move out of frustration, you will be tapped, guaranteed. The only way to succeed is to be calm in every position, no matter how uncomfortable it is. You need to be one with your opponent. BJJ competitors are extremely disciplined. Disciplined, humble, respectful. Now, if you're familiar with the UFC, you'll see guys like Conor McGregor, for example, who are very flamboyant. They are very out there with, I'm all this and nobody can beat me. There's not much of this internal knowing that's kept within that, I'm very good at this sport. It's more so an external projection of I'm the best. That's not what Jiu Jitsu is about. Jiu Jitsu, no matter how good you are, you won't find any cocky competitors. Why? Because everybody knows in Jiu Jitsu, you can be beat. Just like how Conor McGregor was beat. He looked very foolish when he was submitted by Nate Diaz a year ago, because nobody thought McGregor would ever lose, because he always makes fun of opponents. He always claims he's the best. Well, he was tapped out by a rear naked choke by Nate Diaz. A rear naked choke is a jiu-jitsu move. Now, Nate Diaz is also very, talky talk. Although, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. While Conor McGregor is a purple belt. A purple belt is the second highest. Black belt is the highest belt in jiu-jitsu. You don't want to be a showboat ever. Although many successful people are showboats in this world, things tend to crumble down when you think everything is at rest. And BJJ artists are prepared for that, which separates them from the bunch of many other combat sports and sports in general. Whilst martial arts tend to favor aggression and rampage, BJJ exemplifies a flowing state of Zen or intuition. Now, when one has achieved such mental clarity and they are focused on beating their opponent, there comes a time where their reaction time is so quick that there's no thought behind the move. I'll give you an example. If somebody were to leg lock me, a leg lock is a very dangerous move to not tap out from if you put in one. A leg lock can definitely break your leg for sure. It's a submission where you're taking somebody's knee or ankle and you're putting it in between, usually underneath your armpit, and most likely the most traditional lock is something like this. You grab your own bicep, you hug here, and there'll be some kind of break, little breaking point action within the joints. Now, if somebody is setting up a leg lock on me because I've been put in a leg lock, how many times have I tapped out because of the pain of being in a leg lock? Now, when somebody sets it up on me, how quickly will I know instinctually what to do? In which case, I would use my other foot to push off of the opponent and free the leg that was in danger. Therefore, I was operating off of intuition there. Most BJJ artists, it looks like, oh man, the sport looks so easy. They make it look easy. But mostly, they're using intuition. They're not using thought. Why? Because you can think, what do I do? By the time you have your answer, you were already supposed to go. Now he won't. So, you get the mental clarity, you get your techniques down in the room, in the practice room rather. By competition, you can just go off of intuition. Your subconscious knows what to do. Your conscious mind is no longer needed. Judo came about from a Japanese BJJ practitioner named Higoro Kano. Now, I may have dropped the ball on the pronunciation, but let's look at this. Judo is a sport where you're not allowed to take somebody down. It's just throws from the upper body. It uses leverage, it uses good hip movements, and it's just upper body. Well, this guy, Higoro Kano, used to do BJJ, which is Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He was on the mat, rolling with his buddies in the ground game, as we call it. And one day he realized, in a real life situation, the ground game is less important. Why? Because you may be on concrete, you may be on a hard surface, let's say, where it would kind of be not the most applicable to kind of roll around, throw in guillotines and, mount transitions and all this on hard surface. So he says the takedown is more important. Now, taking somebody down can be definitely exposing yourself to a punch. If I were to duck in to shoot on you, I could be kicked, I could be kneed, I could be elbowed. A lot of bad things can happen. Although, I can throw somebody without being punched, without being kneed, elbowed, kicked, whatever. If somebody puts a hand on me, I can use that. I can go under an arm, and I can shoot my hips into him. He's gonna fly over me. It's basic arm throw, judo. Jiu-Jitsu dates back to 1532 in Japan. Now that's quite a while away. Shows you how esoteric it truly is, how ancient the sport is. The art of Jiu-Jitsu is nowhere near a new thing. In 1914, the Gracie family was introduced by the Japanese to Jiu-Jitsu. Originally, the sport of Jiu-Jitsu was just called Jiu-Jitsu. That word is a Japanese word that means gentle art. Now, that's a rough translation, but legend says gentle art is what Jiu-Jitsu means in Japanese. In 1532, the Japanese were practicing the ground game. They were also practicing the upper body game. But the key difference is the Japanese were focused on aggression, more so strangling rather than submitting. It was much more aggressive and violent, whereas the Gracies discovered a different approach. You see, there's this man, a very elderly man named Helio Gracie. At the time when the Japanese showed him the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, he said, "I'd never be able to do that. I have stiff knees, stiff elbows. I can't move that way. I won't be able to use strength to overpower people. I need leverage, pressure, momentum." And thus, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was founded by the Gracie family. I think that wraps up all of our discussions today on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A couple key takeaways is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is all about the flow. It's all about accepting what is now. If you're in a position that you're not comfortable with, it's not your strong suit, you don't have a choice to just switch the position automatically, or you may be counterattacked and submitted. Therefore, you need to adjust and adapt to everywhere in your environment. Everything you come across in this life seems a lot more approachable and easy once you do something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you're looking for stability in your life, control over your desires, your plans, your goals, if you're looking for discipline to make harmony with your work, with your relationships, with your job, with your family, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu will get your mind, body, and spirits back to center.